Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. In today's video, we're going to be making this octagonal shaped box, which has a slot tab on the front, and then the lid flips open like so. You can see I've decorated mine in a circus theme, and I just thought that suited this shape box. The box can be made with or without dies. I've made this particular box without any dies, so you can see my base is formed as part of the sides of the box. I will give you measurements for cardstock with and without dies. So for instance, if you have an octagonal die, you would cut your octagon and that would form the base of your box like so. If you don't have an octagonal die but you want to save on cardstock, you'll use the smaller of the cardstock measurements I will give you, and you could cut yourself a circle. This is 5 3/4 in diameter, and you can use that as your base. And you can see on the inside that is what I've used to cover the inside elements of the box. You can resize this, it's not too complicated to do, and I will show you in the video using the lid as an example how you could make this as a 6 or even 7-sided box and then adjust the cardstock pieces accordingly. So let's put the project together. We will start by making the triangular template, which is going to help us form the lid. And I'm starting with a piece of cardstock which is 2.5 by 4. You're going to want to draw around this to create your lid, and I'll show you 2 examples of the shape of the lid, but you'll be drawing around either a minimum of 6 or 8 times. So you want to make sure that you cut this from a reasonable cardstock, maybe an offcut of packaging or something. Along the top 2.5 edge, make a pencil mark at 1 1/4, and you're then going to join up the pencil mark with the bottom left and the bottom right hand corner. That will give you your triangle. Cut the excess cardstock away using either your scissors or your trimmer. We will use this triangle to create the lid portion of the box. I'm going to show you an example here. My box is octagonal, therefore the lid is made up of 8 sections. You could, if you wanted, only have 6 sections. So your lid would look like this, and then when we come to make the base of the box, you'll adjust your measurements accordingly. Alternatively, you might want to have 7 sections. So if I just cut this, if you imagine that piece comes round here, we've now got our 7-sided box. You don't necessarily need to have the 8 that I'm making. You could choose to have 6, 7, or you might want to have more sides to your box. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to give you the starting point, which is going to be the centre of the lid. Make a pencil mark 4 inches down the left hand side, 4 inches down the right hand side. You could use your scoreboard for this, that might be handy. I'm then going to measure across 5 1/4 inches. So here, line my ruler up with that pencil mark. Doesn't need to be 100% accurate, but it needs to be there or thereabouts just to make sure we can get everything nicely on your base cardstock. And this will work whether it's US letter or A4. So I'm just going to put my pencil mark there. So this dot is going to be the centre of the lid as our starter. Take a triangle. The first triangle is going to sit, I've got my point of my triangle sitting on the dot. As I say, it's to give you an indication. It doesn't need to be 100% accurate at this stage. I'm going to lightly draw around the outside of my template. My next triangle is going to be the left. I'm going to line the edge of the template up with the pencil line. My point is lined up. Draw around the remaining 2 sides of the triangle. Do one more underneath. I'm then going to continue. So this is going to be number 1, 2, 3. I'm going to continue for another 5 triangles. So that was number 7 and that was number 8. So this is how we look so far. The next thing we want to do, at the end of segment number 2 and to the left of segment number 8, we're going to add a glue tab. I'll start here. I'm going to make it 1/2 inch. So I've got my 1/2 inch mark lined up with the left hand edge. I'm just going to draw around like so. And then I'm going to shape the end at the bottom. And at the moment, I'm going to leave that, but we will need to cut it so that the piece can fit round into this piece when we stick it together. Then at the end of number 2, I'm going to do the same, just mark across with my ruler. Again, this is just to create a glue tab, so it doesn't need to be exactly 1/2 inch, and that is going to come straight across like so. So that's the start of our piece for the lid of the box. We're now going to add a segment onto the end of piece number 6, which is going to create the front flap with the tab in. Cut yourself a piece of cardstock which is 2.5 by 2 inches. If you make a box a different size, it wants to be the width of your edge here. I'm going to sit the top edge, the 2.5 edge, line it up with the bottom of the stitch segment and just draw around the outside. By doing it this way, it just means that our tab is going to be running in the right orientation and not off at a slight angle or something if we were to create these lines manually. This was the easiest way that I could think to achieve this. Now that my piece is marked, I'm going to add in my score lines and then cut the piece out. I'll take my ruler and use my stylus, and I'm going to score from you can do it from beyond the outside edge up to the center. So work your way around. So that's my piece all marked. I'm going to mark along this base at the same time. We will be adding a score line in 1/2 inch from the bottom. You may want to do that now, or you may want to wait until we've cut around the piece and then put this in your scoreboard and make the 1/2 inch score line, which is what I'm going to do. We now carefully want to cut around our piece. I'm going to just put my piece in the scoreboard like so. I've got the outside edge of this piece lined up with the 1/2 inch track, and I'm just going to score. We now want to cut our tab. You may want to add your pattern paper on first so that you're cutting through the pattern paper and the cardstock at the same time. I'm going to measure along the 1/2 inch score line that we've just made and make a pencil mark at 1/2 inch from the right hand side and 1/2 inch from the left hand side. So I've got 2 pencil marks on this score line. I'm going to measure up 1/2 inch from each of these and then join those lines up. We then want to use our craft knife to cut along this line, and down here to create a tab. So this is cut. I'm going to flip the piece over, push the tab out. You want to fold the tab like so. Let's burnish it in this direction and then push it and burnish it in the other direction. Because if you imagine, this is going to slot into the side of the box. I'm going to round off the corners of this tab, and I can't get this corner into my corner rounder. I just want to slightly round off the corner of those so that it might be easier to get into the slot. So if you flip your piece back, we're going to be folding each of the score lines as a valley fold. So if you start with the long tab next to number 8 first, and we can see here before we do anything else that this tab comes over the triangle for number 8. I'm going to extend the line from the centre down. I'm going to cut my tab just inside the pencil line. I'm going to fold and burnish all the way around. So our lid will come together like so, and that has formed the tab to add the lid onto the back of the box and the front flap. Before I stick the piece together, I'm going to get rid of all of the pencil marks on the underside. Now we can add our glue to our glue tab, pull this side over, and there we have our lid. The tab sits nicely on the inside. I've got quite a good point at the top, so I'm quite happy with that. Now what I would say, don't throw your template away, because you can use this to create the template for your patterned paper on the top. If that's what you're having, you might want to trim 1/8 of an inch or whatever your preferred border is off of the 3 sides. Offer it up against the side of the box just to see what it looks like, and then make any adjustments as necessary, and then use that as the template for your pattern paper. For the sides of the box, and again I'm making this to fit my lid, so it's going to have 8 sides, you will need to adjust the length of your cardstock as necessary to suit 6 or 7-sided lid. The starting cardstock, if you don't have dies, is 10.5 by 7, and if you do have dies it will be 10.5 by 4. The scoring on both pieces of cardstock will be exactly the same. Along the long side, score at 2.5, 5, 7.5 and 10. Rotate, and on the short side score at 1/2 and 3.5. Do that on both pieces of cardstock, and with your piece in this orientation with the 1/2 inch tab at the top and the 1/2 inch tab on the right hand side, just put a pencil mark, a number 2, into the top edge of the second square along, and on the second piece of cardstock do the same but mark it as a number 6. So it will be in the same square on the second piece, but it will be a 6. Fold and burnish along the score lines. Regardless of the size of cardstock, if you keep your 1/2 inch tab on the right hand side, the cutting is going to be the same. This piece here will just be shorter. Start by cutting up the vertical score lines up to the horizontal. This will be either the glue tabs for your hexagon or your circle base, or the base tabs for the box. Rotate, we can remove this long rectangle, cut a wedge from the end, remove this bottom square, cut a wedge from the end, and we want to cut down each of these score lines up to the 1/2 inch score line. The next thing is to remove the tab which has got the number 2 on it. This section here without the tab is where the lid is going to be adhered. In relation to these tabs here, you have some options, and you might want to do your cutting now if you're going to shape them. It depends how you want the look of your end box to be. If we imagine that these are the sides of our box, you may want to cut a wedge off of the ends of each these tabs, so that when the box is added together you can lift this up and it doesn't restrict access to the box. You may want to leave them unstuck but the sides straight, or you might want to eventually, when we created the box, actually add one tab on top of another and glue them down. So I would suggest, if you want to shape the tabs, you might want to do that now, because it will be easier to get your corner rounder in, for instance. I'm going to round off the corners of all of the tabs and they will remain unstuck. Before we stick the box together, we want to cut the slot into section number 6. I would recommend that you either flip the piece over and mark on the reverse, or alternatively you add your decorative paper onto this panel and then mark your slot. When you cut your slot, you're cutting through the cardstock and the pattern paper at the same time. So this is section number 6. I'm going to take my lid and line up the score line, this score line here with this score line here, and the sides of the panel up with the sides of the panel. So this is going to sit on the outside like so. Pull the tab back and I'm going to put a pencil line inside like so. This tells me where I need my slot to be for this tab to fit in. I'm going to start by cutting along the slot line that I've just marked and then slightly extend it. If anything, we want the slot to be slightly bigger than the tab. I'm then going to take my ruler and sit my ruler just a 1/16 of an inch, less than a 1/16 of an inch above the cut line that we've made, and put in another cut line. I'll take my piece and I'm going to do the same under the original cut line. We want to make sure now that the slot is going to work before we glue the box together. So let's extend that down. Do the same this side. If I sit the sides of my box up like so, take my lid, sit my lid on the top, sit the side around the outside to make sure that my lid can slot down in like so. So I'm happy with that. Our pieces are now ready to adhere together. I'm going to use tape again. Before we stick them together, remove your number 6 from the top. Remove the backing. Flip it over. Take the backing off of this, or add glue to this tab, and then bring this side across and join up the box. Now the box is added together, I've flipped it over, so we'll now put the base together. You will either have 1/2 inch tabs here or the 3.5 inch base tabs. Either fold over your 1/2 inch tabs and then add your octagonal or your circle base on. Alternatively, if you have the long base tabs, these are the two which are going to form the hinge at the back and the front element of the box. I'm going to work on these two first. There's a 1/2 inch overlap on the tabs. I'll add glue within bottom 1/2 inch, pull this piece over and make sure that you get the sides of one lined up with the sides of the one that is sitting on, like so. I'm going to work on these two now, and before I add the glue, I'm going to lightly mark with a pencil. This one will come across within there like so, and this one will come across like so, and the same the other side. So I can add glue on the 1/2 inch tab as we did on the first piece, but I can also add it within these pencil lines to stick these pieces down as well. If you need to, you can flip the piece over and just make sure that you're getting it into the right shape. turn it over and then just push it all down. And then I can just go in with the end of my score tool and just spread the glue on the bottom. Now consider whether you want to now add the lid on and then decorate the piece in its entirety, or you might want to decorate the base, then decorate the lid, and then add the lid into place. I am going to add my pattern paper and then join the two pieces together. Now I've added the pattern paper on, the final thing to do is add adhesive to the back hinge of the lid. I'm going to flip it around and do it from this way. Line the lid up, sure the hinge sits in neatly. That's in there, and then the lid will come across like so, and then the tab here will slot in, and that will secure the lid in place. I've got one final element to add on to the front of the lid, like so. And that is my box completed. The pattern paper for the sides is 2 1/4 wide by 2 3/4 deep, and the lid I cut by taking 1/8 of an inch off of all 3 sides of our original triangle template. The pattern papers I used for this are from the Circus collection. This is from Craft Consortium, and the big top element is from the Big Top die set, and this is Simply Made Crafts by Helen Griffin. The box is very easy to get open and closed, and there's lots of room inside. Overall, I'm really pleased with how the box has come out, and of course you could decorate the box in any theme. It doesn't have to be a Big Top circus. So there we have today's project. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel, and until next time, thanks for watching.